Hi kids! Have you ever played a sport like dodgeball at school and people had to pick who would be on their team? Usually people go for the strongest, tallest, fastest, or maybe the best thrower, dodger, or catcher. It makes sense if you are building a strong team. This is usually how we view people. We see the outward, how they look or dress or what they have. But I'm glad that when God sees us, He sees us differently. We often look on people's outward appearance, but God, He sees our hearts. In today's Bible story, God chose a boy named David to be the next king over Israel. But he wasn't the most obvious choice. We'll find out why soon. But first, we have a new memory verse I want to share with you. It's Ephesians 1, 7 through 8. I'll read it for you. Ephesians 1, 7 and 8. In whom we have redemption through His blood, the forgiveness of sins according to the riches of His grace, wherein He hath abounded toward us in all wisdom and prudence. Ephesians 1, 7 through 8. This message is exciting because it tells us that we are forgiven through Jesus shedding His blood on the cross for us. Because we have God's forgiveness, we are rich because we have grace. Grace is getting something we don't deserve. We don't deserve God's forgiveness, love, or heaven, but because of Jesus, we can have all of that, and that makes us rich. Try to say the verse with me. Ephesians 1, 7 and 8. In whom we have redemption through His blood, the forgiveness of sins according to the riches of His grace, wherein He hath abounded toward us into all wisdom and prudence. Ephesians 1, 7 and 8. God chose to give us Jesus, and He chose to make David king over Israel. Let's find out what happens in our Bible story today from 1 Samuel 16. Saul was the king of Israel, but he had disobeyed God. So God told Samuel to fill a horn with oil and go to Bethlehem. A man named Jesse lived there. God had chosen one of Jesse's sons to be Israel's next king. God said, "Visit Jesse and his sons. I will show you which one I have chosen." Samuel went to Bethlehem and met with Jesse and his sons. Jesse's oldest son was tall and handsome. When Samuel saw him, he thought, "This must be the one God has chosen to be king." But God told Samuel, "He is not the one. Do not pay attention to what he looks like. You look at what you can see on the outside, but I see his heart." Jesse brought his next son to Samuel, but Samuel said, "The Lord hasn't chosen him." One by one, Jesse's sons approached Samuel. Each time, Samuel said, "The Lord hasn't chosen him either." "Do you have more sons?" Samuel asked. "Yes," Jesse said. "My youngest son, David, is in the fields taking care of the sheep." Jesse sent for David. When David arrived, God told Samuel, "He's the one." Samuel anointed David. He poured oil on David's head to show that God had chosen him to be king. The Spirit of the Lord was with David, and Samuel went back home. Now, King Saul was bothered by an evil spirit. Saul's servants thought that Saul might feel better if he listened to beautiful music. One of Saul's officials knew that Jesse's son, David, could play a small harp-like instrument called a lyre. So David came to Saul, and whenever Saul felt troubled, David played his lyre, and Saul felt better. Samuel anointed David, setting him apart to be the next king. God's choice for Israel's king was surprising. David was the youngest in his family, but God saw David's heart for the Lord. When Jesus came to earth, he seemed like a surprising choice for a king. But Jesus is the perfect king who saves us from our sin and reigns forever.